22. Hidden signs of dementia that may be going unnoticed. The 13th symptom may surprise you. Have you ever forgotten where you left your keys? Or walked into a room and forgot what you were going to do? Small memory lapses are common, but when it becomes frequent, it can be a wake-up call for something much more serious. What if I told you that there are early signs of dementia that go unnoticed by most people, and that some lifestyle changes can help protect your memory for longer? Dementia is not just a natural part of aging. It can be prevented or delayed with simple strategies, from proper nutrition to brain exercise. Today, you'll find out what the early signs of this condition are, how to recognize the most common symptoms, and what science already knows about prevention and treatment. Let's get started. The shocking truth about dementia that no one tells you. Dementia is not just an occasional forgetfulness. It is a progressive condition that affects millions of people around the world, stealing memories, cognitive abilities, and even the identity of those who develop it. But did you know that many people still believe that dementia is an inevitable part of aging? This is one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to brain health. What really happens in the brain of a person with dementia? The condition is caused by the death of neurons and the deterioration of brain connections, making simple tasks increasingly difficult. This process can be slow and silent, starting years before the first symptoms appear. Science has already identified several risk factors that can increase your chances of developing dementia. Among them are aging, genetic predisposition, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, and even the lack of activities that stimulate the brain. But what few know is that there are measures that can help delay or even prevent this condition. If you think dementia is all about forgetting names or appointments, know that it goes far beyond that. Symptoms can include difficulties communicating, mood swings, spatial confusion, and even changes in sensory perception. Many of these manifestations are ignored until the disease is already advanced. Currently, there is no definitive cure for dementia, but there are treatments that can help slow its progression and improve quality of life. Researchers around the world are looking for new therapies, from innovative drugs to non-pharmacological strategies such as physical exercise, cognitive stimulation, and specific diets that protect the brain. The good news is that understanding how dementia works can help identify the early signs and act in time. The earlier the diagnosis is made, the greater the chances of slowing the progression of the condition and preserving the patient's independence. If you've ever noticed subtle changes in your memory, or someone close to you, it's essential to seek medical advice. Sometimes, symptoms that seem harmless can be the first signs of something more serious. Now that you have a better understanding of what really happens to the brain during dementia, it's time to dismantle one of the most dangerous myths about this condition. Is it really part of natural aging? The answer may surprise you. Care. These 4 types of dementia can change your life forever. Many people believe that dementia is limited to Alzheimer's, but the reality is quite different. There are several types of this condition, and each affects the brain in its own unique way. Identifying the difference between them can be essential for early diagnosis and more effective treatment. The first and most well-known type of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. It corresponds to about 60% to 80% of cases and begins silently, usually with mild forgetfulness that worsens over time. People with Alzheimer's may have difficulty remembering recent events, holding conversations, or performing everyday tasks. As the disease progresses, mental confusion, mood swings, and even loss of the ability to recognize family members may appear. The second type is vascular dementia, caused by problems in the brain's blood circulation. Minor strokes can damage critical areas of the brain, resulting in progressive cognitive difficulties. Unlike Alzheimer's, vascular dementia does not always begin with memory loss, but rather with thinking problems, difficulty making decisions, and changes in behavior. The third type is dementia with Lewy bodies, characterized by symptoms that go beyond memory. People with this condition may have visual hallucinations, difficulty moving, and sudden changes in attention. In addition, fluctuations in cognitive status can cause the patient to be lucid one day and the next to have great mental confusion. This type of dementia can also present with symptoms similar to those of Parkinson's disease, such as tremors and muscle stiffness. Finally, we have frontotemporal dementia, which mainly affects behavior and personality. While Alzheimer's begins by affecting memory, this type of dementia first impacts emotional and social control. People with this condition may exhibit inappropriate behavior, impulsivity, difficulty expressing emotions, and even loss of the ability to speak. Often, family members confuse the symptoms with depression or sudden personality changes, delaying the diagnosis. While all of these types of dementia share some similarities, the way they affect the brain can be very different. The correct diagnosis is essential to determine the best treatment and offer more quality of life to the patient. Now that you know the different types of dementia, it's time to be on the lookout for the early signs of the disease. Some of them are so subtle that they can go unnoticed, but ignoring them can be costly. 1. Trouble finding words can be more dangerous than they seem. Have you ever had that feeling that the word is on the tip of your tongue, but it just doesn't come out? This can be normal from time to time, but when it becomes frequent and affects daily communication, it can be one of the first signs of dementia. People with dementia praecox begin to have difficulty finding common words, making conversations slower and more confusing. They may interchange words inappropriately, forgetting the names of simple objects or using vague descriptions, such as saying that drinking instead of glass. In addition, they can lose the thread of the conversation easily, having difficulty following long dialogues or stories. This can cause them to avoid social interactions, resulting in isolation and frustration. This symptom can start subtly, going unnoticed by family and friends. However, if you notice that someone close to you is often struggling to express themselves, using the wrong words, or getting lost in sentences, it's an important wake-up call. Difficulty communicating can be one of the first signs that the brain is having trouble processing information. But this is not the only silent sign of dementia. There is another sign that can affect your senses without you realizing it. 2. Are your senses changing? This can be a warning sign. Did you know that dementia can affect much more than just memory? Changes in the senses, such as sight, hearing, smell, and taste, can be one of the first signs that something is wrong in the brain. People in the early stages of dementia may have difficulty judging distances and depth, making simple tasks such as going downstairs or parking a car quite a challenge. Some also begin to see colors differently, or have trouble recognizing familiar faces. Another worrying sign is the gradual loss of smell and taste. Many patients stop smelling and tasting in the same way as before, which can result in a loss of appetite and even malnutrition. In addition, hearing difficulties can arise, especially in noisy environments. The person may have difficulty following conversations when there is noise in the background, which leads to confusion and frustration. If you or someone close to you notices unexplained sensory changes, it is important to investigate. But that's not the only silent warning. There is another sign that may be hidden in your daily behavior, and it may be more serious than you think. 3. Doesn't that hobby you loved now make sense? Find out why. Have you ever felt that you have lost interest in activities that used to give you pleasure? If this happens occasionally, it may just be a period of demotivation. But if this lack of will becomes constant and progressive, it can be an early warning of dementia. The loss of interest in hobbies, social gatherings, and even everyday tasks can indicate a problem in brain function. Many people who are in the early stages of dementia begin to abandon activities they once loved, such as reading, painting, cooking, or even hanging out with friends. This happens because the brain has difficulty maintaining focus and processing stimuli that were previously natural. In addition, the person may find it more difficult to plan and start activities, which results in more apathetic and withdrawn behavior. The problem is that this change is often confused with depression or simply attributed to aging. If someone close to you has lost enthusiasm for things you once liked, stay tuned. Now imagine if, in addition to the loss of interest, the body began to show physical signs of the problem. Did you know that muscle weakness can be directly linked to the brain? The next early sign may surprise you. 4. Your body gives signs before the mind. Muscle weakness can be an early sign. Did you know that dementia can start to manifest in the body even before memory problems appear? Muscle weakness, lack of coordination, and difficulty performing simple movements can be one of the first signs of the disease. Many people do not associate physical symptoms with cognitive decline, but the brain controls every movement of our body. When neural connections are damaged, simple tasks such as holding objects, tying shoes, or even walking can become challenging. Some patients in the early stages of dementia report feelings of unexplained weakness, frequent falls, and even difficulty getting up from a chair. These symptoms may be linked to changes in the brain areas responsible for balance and motor control. In addition, loss of muscle tone and slowness in movement may indicate a specific form of dementia, such as dementia with Lewy bodies, which shares symptoms with Parkinson's disease. If someone close to you shows these signs for no apparent reason, it is important to investigate. But the confusion isn't just limited to muscles. Imagine losing track of where you are, even in familiar locations. That's the next worrying sign of dementia. 5. Getting lost in familiar places can be one of the first symptoms. Have you ever found yourself trying to remember the way back home, even though you've been walking the same route for years? Feeling disoriented occasionally is normal, but when it happens frequently and in familiar places, it can be one of the first signs of dementia. Spatial disorientation affects the brain's ability to create mind maps and recognize landmarks. At first, the person may have difficulty remembering where they parked their car, finding a room inside the house, or following simple directions. In more advanced cases, he can get lost in streets near his residence, feeling fear and anxiety. This symptom occurs because the areas of the brain responsible for navigation and orientation begin to deteriorate. In addition, the difficulty in interpreting visual signals, such as maps and signs, can aggravate the problem. If someone close to you begins to show insecurity to move around alone or avoids leaving the house for fear of getting lost, it is essential to be attentive. Now, if disorientation is already worrisome, imagine if the brain started to dysregulate something as essential as sleep. The next sign could be affecting your health without you realizing it. 6. Trouble sleeping can reveal something much more serious. If you have trouble sleeping, wake up several times during the night, or experience excessive sleep during the day, you may be dealing with more than just tiredness. Sleep disturbances can be one of the first signs of dementia, appearing years before other, more overt symptoms. The brain needs deep, restful sleep to eliminate toxins and consolidate memories. When there are changes in the brain areas responsible for the sleep cycle, the person may experience persistent insomnia, frequent awakenings, and even inversion of the day-night cycle, going to sleep during the day and staying awake at night. Another worrying symptom is sunset syndrome, a common phenomenon in dementia patients. During the night, they may experience confusion, agitation, and even hallucinations, making the nighttime period distressing for both them and their caregivers. If sleep is dysregulated without an apparent cause, it's worth investigating. After all, sleepless nights not only affect rest, but also accelerate cognitive decline. But the signs don't stop there. Have you noticed changes in your posture or difficulties walking? The next symptom may indicate that your brain is sending warning signals. 7. Is your posture different? This may be related to the brain. If someone close to you has started to walk more slowly, dragging their feet or leaning their body forward, it can be a warning sign. Changes in posture and the way of walking may be linked to the early stages of dementia. The brain controls not only memory, but also body movements. When brain areas responsible for coordination and balance begin to be affected, the person may have a more stooped posture, muscle stiffness, and difficulty initiating movement. In addition, these patients may have trouble maintaining balance, increasing the risk of falls. This can be especially common in specific types of dementia, such as dementia with Lewy bodies and vascular dementia, which directly affect mobility. If you or someone in your family is experiencing changes in posture, difficulty walking, or frequent falls for no apparent reason, it is essential to see a doctor. These signs may indicate that the brain is not working as it should. Now imagine if, in addition to the difficulty in moving, simple everyday tasks started to become a challenge. That's the next worrying symptom of dementia. 8. If simple tasks are challenging you, pay close attention. Activities that have always been automatic, such as cooking, paying bills, or even getting dressed, can become increasingly complicated for those in the early stages of dementia. This is because the disease affects the brain's executive function, that is, the ability to plan, organize, and complete tasks. At first, the person may forget a step in the recipe they have always prepared or get confused with simple numbers when making payments. Over time, even routine activities like brushing your teeth or using the remote control can become confusing. In addition to difficulty performing tasks, a sense of frustration and irritability can arise. Often, family members notice that the person begins to avoid certain responsibilities, claiming tiredness or disinterest, when in fact he may be having cognitive difficulties. If someone close to you starts to make mistakes in easy tasks or need help with things you used to do alone, it is important to be aware. Small changes can be the first indication of a larger problem. But this is not the only warning. If the person also loses interest in social interactions, it may be another sign that something is not wrong. Let's talk about it in the next topic. 9. Losing interest in conversation can be more dangerous than you think. Have you ever noticed someone close to you becoming quieter, avoiding conversations, or seeming distant in social interactions? This change may not just be a matter of personality, but rather an early sign of dementia. In the early stages of the disease, the brain may have difficulty processing information and organizing thoughts. This makes communication more challenging, making the person feel uncomfortable when talking. Over time, she may avoid social interactions, respond with short sentences, or even show disinterest in family gatherings and gatherings with friends. In addition, dementia can affect the ability to follow conversations. The person may get lost in the middle of a dialogue, forget what they were talking about, or have difficulty understanding what others say. This can generate frustration and insecurity, leading to isolation. Often, this change in behavior is confused with depression or shyness. However, if it is accompanied by other symptoms, it may be an indication that the brain is suffering from cognitive decline. Now that you know the early signs of dementia, let's talk about the 13 classic symptoms you need to recognize. Some of them may be closer than you think. 1. Don't know where you are or what day it is. This is not normal. Forgetting the date from time to time can happen to anyone, but when this confusion becomes frequent and involves time and space, it can be a classic symptom of dementia. People with dementia may forget not only the day of the week, but also the month or even the year they are living in. In addition, they may have difficulty remembering where they are and how they got to a certain place. In more advanced cases, they can get lost in familiar environments, such as inside the house or in the neighborhood where they have lived for years. This symptom occurs because the brain loses the ability to organize the perception of time and space. This can generate anxiety, fear, and even panic episodes. If someone close to you begins to demonstrate recurring confusion about time and place, it is important to seek medical advice. Now imagine if, in addition to this disorientation, the person began to have difficulties solving simple problems. This is the next symptom that deserves attention. 2. If simple problems are becoming challenges, beware. Have you ever noticed someone close to you having difficulties planning simple tasks, such as paying bills or following a recipe they have been doing for years? This is one of the most common symptoms of dementia and can be an important wake-up call. At first, the person may make a mistake when calculating change at the market, forget important appointments, or have difficulties following basic instructions. Over time, the ability to make decisions and solve problems becomes increasingly compromised. This symptom occurs because dementia affects the region of the brain responsible for logical reasoning and planning. The person may feel frustrated, anxious, and even avoid certain activities for fear of making mistakes. If small everyday tasks are becoming challenging, it's time to investigate. But what happens when the person starts to store objects in unusual places? This is the next symptom that can indicate something very serious. 3. Keep keys in the fridge? This may be a warning from your brain. We've all forgotten where to put something, but when it becomes frequent and involves unusual places, it can be a worrying symptom of dementia. People with dementia may store objects in completely wrong places, such as putting the remote control inside the refrigerator or the keys in the sugar jar. In addition, they may forget where they put these items and even accuse other people of having tampered with or stolen their belongings. This happens because the disease affects memory and the brain's ability to organize. Small forgetfulness begins to become more serious, compromising daily life. If someone close to you is constantly losing objects and finding them in unexpected places, it's time to pay attention. But that's not all. Sudden mood swings can also be a warning that something is wrong. This is the next symptom that deserves attention. 4. Unexplained mood swings can be an early warning. We all have good and bad days, but when mood swings become frequent and unpredictable, it can be a classic symptom of dementia. People with dementia can go from a state of calm to sudden irritation or sadness for no apparent reason. They may also experience anxiety, excessive distrust, and even outbursts of anger. In some cases, they may show disinterest in activities they once enjoyed and isolate themselves from friends and family. These changes happen because the disease affects areas of the brain responsible for emotional control. The person may not understand what they are feeling, making their reactions unpredictable. If someone close to you has shown intense and unexplained mood swings, it is important to investigate. But that's not all. Losing bladder and bowel control can also be linked to dementia. This is the next symptom that many people don't know about. 5. Lose control of drinking or going to the bathroom. Find out what this means. Urinary and fecal incontinence can be an advanced symptom of dementia, but in some cases, small changes in bladder control can appear in the early stages of the disease. People with dementia may have difficulty recognizing the need to go to the bathroom or forget where it is, especially in unfamiliar locations. They may have episodes of urinary leakage or simply not be able to get to the bathroom in time. Over time, the brain can lose the ability to completely control the muscles responsible for these functions. This symptom can be embarrassing for the patient and challenging for caregivers. It is often attributed to aging, but when it occurs along with other signs of dementia, it deserves attention. Now imagine if, in addition, the person began to see or hear things that do not exist. Hallucinations are one of the most intriguing symptoms of dementia and can confuse even doctors. 6. Are you seeing or hearing things that don't exist? This can be a sign of dementia. Have you ever heard someone report that they saw people at home who weren't there, or heard voices that no one else heard? While it may seem like a psychiatric problem, hallucinations are also a common symptom of certain types of dementia. In dementia with Lewy bodies, for example, visual hallucinations are frequent. The person may see unfamiliar faces, animals, or even shadows moving through the environment. In other types of dementia, auditory hallucinations, such as hearing non-existent voices or sounds, may be more common. These perceptions can be frightening for the patient and difficult for family members to deal with. In some cases, the person may react aggressively or become extremely anxious because they believe that what they see or hear is real. If someone close to you is experiencing this symptom, it is essential to see a doctor. But what about when memory starts to fail quickly? That's the next classic sign of dementia. 7. Forgetting what happened a few minutes ago? Don't ignore it. Forgetting a past event is normal from time to time, but when a person starts to forget what just happened, it can be a worrying sign of dementia. Short-term memory loss is one of the first and most evident symptoms of the disease. At first, the person may ask something and, minutes later, repeat the same question without remembering that they have already received the answer. She may also forget recent appointments, where she put objects, or even what she ate for breakfast. This happens because the brain begins to have difficulty storing new information. Over time, long-term memory can remain intact for a period while recent events quickly fade. If someone close to you has been experiencing this type of repetitive forgetfulness, it's time to see a doctor. But what about when the person starts to avoid social interactions? This is a warning sign that can accelerate cognitive decline. 8. Social isolation may be hiding a bigger problem. If someone close to you has avoided family gatherings, stopped hanging out with friends, or lost interest in social interactions, this could be more than just a mood swing. Isolation can be one of the classic signs of dementia. People with dementia may begin to avoid conversations because they find it difficult to keep up with the pace of the dialogue. They may forget words mid-sentence, lose track of the conversation, or misunderstand what others are saying. This can generate frustration and shame, leading to gradual withdrawal from social life. In addition, changes in personality, such as apathy and lack of initiative, can cause the person to lose interest in activities that they used to enjoy doing in a group. If someone has started isolating themselves for no apparent reason, it is important to pay attention. But what about when the person starts to act inappropriately? This is the next symptom that may indicate something more serious. 9. Saying or doing inappropriate things. Maybe it's not just a moment of carelessness. If someone close to you has started making inappropriate comments or acting impulsively, this can be a classic symptom of dementia. The disease affects the areas of the brain responsible for self-control and judgment, causing the person to lose track of what is appropriate in certain situations. She can, for example, make embarrassing comments in public, touch on sensitive subjects without realizing the impact, or even undress at inappropriate times. This behavior can also include changes in decision-making, such as spending money irresponsibly or relying on strangers for no reason. These changes can be mistaken for personality changes, but when they come on suddenly, they can be a sign that something isn't working well in the brain. Now imagine if, in addition, the person started repeating the same questions several times a day. This is the next symptom that may indicate more advanced cognitive decline. 10. Repeating the same question over and over again. This has a reason. If someone close to you starts asking the same thing over and over again, even though they received the answer a few minutes ago, this can be a strong indication of dementia. This symptom occurs because short-term memory is one of the first areas affected by the disease. The person may completely forget that they have already asked a certain question, and therefore repeat it several times throughout the day. In some cases, you may also tell the same story over and over again without realizing that you've said it before. This can be frustrating for family members and caregivers, but it's important to understand that repetition is unintentional. The person's brain simply cannot store recent information. If this behavior becomes frequent, it is a sign that something is not right and needs to be investigated. But what about when the person starts to have difficulties following conversations? This is the next classic symptom of dementia. 11. Is communicating getting harder? This may be an early symptom. If someone close to you has trouble following conversations, finding words, or organizing sentences, this can be a classic symptom of dementia. In the early stages of the disease, the person may begin to forget common words or replace terms inappropriately, making communication confusing. In addition, she may have difficulty following long dialogues, losing the thread of the conversation, or repeating information without realizing it. This symptom can lead to social isolation, as the person may feel embarrassed or frustrated when trying to express themselves. Over time, the difficulty in communication can become more severe, even affecting the ability to understand what others say. If the language of someone close to you is changing noticeably, it is important to investigate. But what about when the person starts to lose track of time? This is another worrying symptom of dementia. 12. Losing track of time. See what's behind it. Have you ever noticed someone close to you getting confused about dates, times, or even what part of the day they are living? The loss of track of time is one of the classic symptoms of dementia and can start in a subtle way. At first, the person may forget what day of the week is today, or have difficulty remembering important events, such as birthdays and appointments. Over time, this disorientation can worsen, leading them to confuse past and present, believing that ancient events have happened recently. In addition, some people with dementia may lose awareness of the day-night cycle, waking up during the early hours of the morning and believing that it is already morning. This symptom can interfere with the routine and generate a lot of confusion and anxiety. If this difficulty is becoming frequent, it is a warning sign. But what about when the person starts to have difficulties making decisions? This is the next symptom that deserves attention. 13. Exaggerated indecision can be a sign that something is not right. If someone close to you has increasing difficulty making simple decisions, such as choosing what to eat or what clothes to wear, this can be a classic symptom of dementia. The disease directly affects the brain's ability to evaluate options, weigh consequences, and reach a conclusion. At first, the person may take longer to decide small, everyday things, but as the problem progresses, they may become completely dependent on others to make any decision. Additionally, people with dementia may make impulsive and inappropriate decisions, such as spending large amounts of money on unnecessary purchases or blindly trusting strangers. If this change in behavior is accompanied by other symptoms, it is essential to see a doctor. Now that you know the signs of dementia, it's time to understand its causes and how to reduce the risks of this condition. The main causes of dementia that science has already discovered. Dementia is not caused by a single factor, but rather by a combination of elements that can affect brain health over the years. Understanding its main causes can help in prevention and early diagnosis. The most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's disease, which accounts for about 60% to 80% of cases. It occurs due to the abnormal accumulation of proteins in the brain, forming plaques that damage neurons and impair communication between them. This process leads to the progressive loss of memory and other cognitive functions. Another major cause is vascular dementia, which happens when blood flow to the brain is interrupted, usually due to small strokes, CVAs. The lack of oxygen causes irreversible damage to neurons, compromising reasoning, memory, and even mobility. People with hypertension, diabetes, and high cholesterol have a higher risk of developing this type of dementia. Dementia with Lewy bodies is also among the main causes. It occurs due to the abnormal accumulation of proteins called Lewy bodies in the brain, which affects cognition, mobility, and can even cause visual hallucinations. This type of dementia shares symptoms with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, making it difficult to diagnose. Frontotemporal dementia, on the other hand, is one of the least known, but no less impactful. Unlike the others, it affects behavior and personality first, even before compromising memory. People with this condition may show sudden changes in the way they act, becoming impulsive, uninhibited, or emotionally indifferent. In addition to these direct causes, there are risk factors that increase the chances of developing dementia. Advanced age is the biggest factor, but it is not the only one. Family history can also influence, especially in cases of early Alzheimer's. Other factors include cardiovascular disease, obesity, sedentary lifestyle, smoking, and a diet low in essential nutrients. In addition, the lack of cognitive stimuli throughout life can accelerate mental decline. The good news is that many of these factors can be controlled with healthy habits. Taking care of your heart health, keeping your brain active, and having a balanced lifestyle can significantly reduce your risk of developing dementia. Now that you know what can cause this condition, it's time to learn the best ways to avoid it. There are simple and effective ways to protect the brain, and you can get started today. 9 simple and proven ways to reduce your risk of dementia right now. Although dementia has no cure, science has already proven that some habits can significantly reduce the risk of developing it. Small changes in everyday life can make a big difference to brain health. 1. Your diabetes may be sabotaging your brain. Here's how to control it. High blood sugar levels can damage the blood vessels in the brain, increasing the risk of vascular dementia and Alzheimer's. Keeping glucose under control through a balanced diet and physical activity can protect your cognitive functions. 2. Every cigarette can cause your brain to degrade rapidly. Smoking reduces blood flow to the brain, causing inflammation and damage to neurons. Quitting smoking improves brain circulation and reduces the risk of cognitive decline. 3. Stress may be poisoning your mind without you realizing it. Chronic stress releases hormones that can impair memory and accelerate the loss of neurons. Relaxation techniques such as meditation and breathing exercises help keep the brain healthy. 4. Challenging the brain can be your greatest shield against dementia. Learning new skills, such as playing an instrument or speaking another language, strengthens neural connections and increases cognitive reserve, making the brain more resistant to decline. 5. Your sedentary lifestyle is taking a toll on your memory. Physical exercise improves blood circulation in the brain and stimulates the production of substances that protect neurons. Walking, weight training, and dancing are great options for keeping the mind sharp. 6. The more you socialize, the more you protect your brain. Interacting with friends and family stimulates the brain and reduces the risk of isolation, which can accelerate cognitive decline. Participating in group activities strengthens neural connections. 7. Sleepless nights may be accelerating mental aging. During sleep, the brain eliminates toxins that are harmful to memory. Sleeping well reduces the accumulation of proteins linked to Alzheimer's and improves cognitive performance. 8. Obesity doesn't just affect your body, but also your brain. Being overweight can increase inflammation and reduce blood flow to the brain. Maintaining a healthy weight protects against diseases that affect cognition. 9. Want a stronger mind? Build your cognitive reserve now. Reading, playing chess, learning something new, and constantly challenging the mind builds up a cognitive reserve, slowing the impact of brain aging. Now that you know how to protect your mind, let's talk about the advances in dementia treatment and what science has discovered most promising. The latest advances in dementia treatment that could change everything. Science has advanced more and more in the search for effective treatments against dementia. Although there is still no definitive cure, new approaches are helping to slow the progress of the disease and improve the quality of life of patients. One of the most promising advances is the development of innovative drugs, such as beta-amyloid inhibitors. These substances work by reducing the accumulation of toxic proteins in the brain, which are responsible for the destruction of neurons in Alzheimer's. Recent research indicates that these drugs can slow the progression of the disease in its early stages. Another great bet of science is therapies with deep brain stimulation. This method uses controlled electrical impulses to stimulate areas of the brain affected by dementia, helping to improve cognition and memory. Studies indicate that this technique can offer significant benefits for some patients. In addition to pharmacological treatments, non-drug strategies are gaining more and more prominence. Cognitive therapies, such as memory games and mental stimulation exercises, have shown great effectiveness in slowing cognitive decline. Activities such as music, arts, and even contact with animals have also shown positive effects on the well-being of people with dementia. Nutrition has also been an important field in research on dementia treatment. The Mediterranean diet, rich in fish, olive oil, nuts, and vegetables, has been linked to a reduction in the risk of cognitive decline. In addition, some supplements like omega-3s and curcumin are being studied for their potential protective effects on the brain. Another important advance is biomarkers and imaging tests that allow the detection of dementia in its early stages. Today, blood tests and advanced MRIs can identify early signs of the disease even before the first symptoms appear. This allows doctors to intervene sooner, increasing the chances of slowing the progression of the condition. Technology has also played a key role in the treatment of dementia. Apps and smart devices are helping patients maintain their independence for longer by providing reminders, automated routines, and even location support in cases of disorientation. Although there is still no definitive cure, the future of dementia treatment is increasingly promising. Knowledge about the disease is growing rapidly, and new therapies are being developed to offer patients a better quality of life. But the greatest weapon against dementia is still prevention. And the good news is that it's never too late to start taking care of your brain health. There is still hope for a healthy cognitive future. Dementia may sound scary, But the good news is that you have the power to act now to protect your mind. Taking care of the brain is like investing in a healthier, more independent future. Small changes in your diet, exercise routine, and the way you stimulate your mind can make a huge difference over the years. If you or someone close to you is showing warning signs, don't ignore it. Early diagnosis can help slow the progression of the disease and improve quality of life. And remember, science continues to advance, bringing new hope to millions of people around the world. Your brain is your greatest tool. Take care of him with affection and intelligence. The future of your memory starts today.